Hello for everyone. Today we will discuss the topic about the business negotiations in Brazil, and this presentation will be presented by me, Daniel Terentiev, and my colleague Zemlanova Valeria. So first of all, I would like to talk orally about the Brazil. So the capital of Brazil is Brasilia. Its language is Portuguese, like they mainly speak Portuguese language. Their religion is Christianity. It takes almost 81% in the whole country. The governmental style is Federal Presidential Republic, and its population is around 9 million. So the GDP, the gross domestic product of the country, is around 3.5 trillion of US dollars. And running into the slide about the religion and beliefs, mostly due to its colonial Portuguese roots, Brazil has always been a predominantly Roman Catholic country. In fact, Brazil has the largest Roman Catholic population out of any country in the world. It is estimated that out of the Brazil's total population of 209 million, around 126 million Brazilians are Roman Catholic. However, like many other countries in the world, Brazil's irreligious population is also growing. There are also sizable populations of many Protestant religions. The most popular religions in Brazil are as following. So Roman Catholic religion is taken almost in the whole country. It's around 64.63%. It was mostly Portuguese colonists who introduced Roman Catholicism to Brazil, but unfortunately, often by force. Catholicism in general was forced during the colonial rule and independence as the unofficial state religion, but in 1824 it became the official religion of the state. With the Constitution of 1891, the government became secular, but the Catholic Church has still had an influence in Brazil even up to this date. Today, Roman Catholic Christianity is still the dominant religion in the country, with almost 64% of people claiming that they practice the religion. The second most common religion in the country of the people, generally being religious, it's around 8%. It means that 8% of the population is irreligious. And, for example, in 1970, there were fewer than 1 million people in Brazil who said that they were either atheist or agnostic. Over the last several decades, however, the numbers of people that identify as being atheist or agnostic has steadily climbed all the way up to around 15 million people in Brazil, or around 8% of the total population. And the other remaining percent is the other types of Christianity. For example, the Christian religions practiced in Brazil account for around 6.8% of the whole country. There are around 500,000 people in Brazil who practice Orthodox Christianity. So in general, Orthodox Christianity in Brazil is made up of a wide variety of churches due to the influx of various waves of immigrants from Greece, Ukraine, Russia, Lebanon, Syria over the course of the last century or so. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, more commonly referred to as the Mormonism, it also has reported a membership of almost 1.2 million people across 1,940 congregations and 315 family history centers. So in the next slide, I would like to introduce the family, about the cultural relationship within the Brazilian family. So family is of paramount importance to Brazilian people, and grown up children often remain with parents until they marry. Extended family members tend to keep close ties with one another, and elderly parents are looked after, often living with one of their children. Historically, family sizes were quite large, but in recent decades people are having less children, particularly in the more urban areas. Similarly, marriage was very much a religious observance and legally binding. However, in the last 4 decades, for example, the attitudes have changed, and civil marriage is becoming more common in Brazil. Divorce was not legalized until 1977 because of the opposition from Catholic Church. So the next slide will mainly introduce you the cultural relationship about its social satisfaction within the Brazilian population. Despite the mixing of ethnicities in Brazil, there is a class system. For example, the social discrimination on the basis of the skin color is common occurrence, and in general, people with a darker brown skin are economically and socially disadvantaged. The middle and upper classes often have only brief interaction with the lower classes who are typically made up of maids, drivers, and etc. There's a great disparity in wage differentials and lifestyle and also social aspirations among the different classes. Women, who make up 40% of the Brazilian workforce, are typically found in lower paid jobs such as teaching, administrative support, and nursing. The 1988 Constitution prohibits discrimination against women, but inequities still exist. The one place where women are achieving equality is in the government. So, in this slide, I will briefly introduce you this cultural relationship in socialization. As one of the largest countries in the world, child rearing in Brazil is very much dependent on class, cultural, and racial diversity, and also on socioeconomic differences. Throughout Brazil, educational opportunities and social development tend to be concentrated in urbanized areas which are primarily situated in the southeast of the country. Brazil's cultural diversity emanates from the various immigrant populations over the past 300 years, including the Portuguese who colonized the country and other European peoples, for example, Japanese, Chinese, and African slaves. The aspects of socialization, therefore, vary considerably between groups. Although some cultural exchanges exist, much depends on ethnicity. Though education in Brazil is compulsory, but between the ages of 6 to 14 years, funding resources tend to be concentrated in the urban areas, and many groups are disadvantaged socially and economically, so they have little access to further education. So in the next slide, I will illustrate the communication style that is common in Brazil. So Brazilian people are often unfriendly. They often use hand gestures in communication and are not put off by touch. It's uncommon for women and children, for example, to link arms when walking, and men may use both hands to shake hands to add warmth and sincerity to their greeting. Some foreigners can find it a culture shock when Brazilians leave little distance when talking. Many senior and middle-ranking Brazilian business executives, for example, speak excellent English, and in fact many of them may have studied abroad in the US or Europe. However, English is by no means universally spoken, and when dealing with people outside the major commercial centers, an ability to speak Brazilian Portuguese is extremely useful. For example, trying to avoid using Spanish, as this can be seen as culturally insensitive. Brazilians are proud of their uniqueness in South America as non-Spanish speakers. If doing business in Brazil for the first time, then that would be recommended to have at least a translator. As with many other Latin countries, communication tends to be predominantly oral rather than through the written word. Brazilians tend to put the spoken before the written word. When sending something in a written format, it's usually a good idea to follow up it with a phone call or a visit. On the other hand, for example, Brazilians try to avoid the deadlocks, which is the common terminology used in Brazil. What it means that, for example, the Brazilians, there's a point in a discussion which takes the business executives nowhere because people cannot even reach the agreement. That's the most common business environment in Brazil. So, for example, it means that when the Brazilians talk about the business agreements, any other executives won't listen to them, and that's why they cannot make any counter proposals. That's what led to the deadlocks in the business environment in Brazil. So the next slide will briefly introduce the personal relations and trust in Brazilian business environment. For example, for Brazilians, it's important to get to know the person with whom they are going to be negotiating. They do not get straight to the heart of the commercial issue in question. Therefore, they have great appreciation for personal relationship, and in general, they do not enter into agreements until they have met the person involved in the negotiation process. To achieve a sound business relationship, you need to remember that, first of all, you are taking part in human relationship. Bonding and building trust are essential elements to achieve the intended agreements, as this will contribute to transparency, a precise value at the time of doing the business. For example, Brazilians are eager to reach the consensus in the business environment. For example, first of all, they it's common in Brazilian business environment to disagree. The first of all, initially disagree with any statements, but later on they try to find any solutions to agree on the contracts. Also, Brazilians don't highball, for example, which is another common terminology. What it means that the Brazilians ask for a lot more than you think they will agree to offer you. But on the other hand, for example, when the Brazilians lowball, you can offer much less than you think it can be acceptable in Brazilian environment. So in the next slide, I will introduce you to gift giving. For example, if invited to a Brazilian house, bringing the hostess flowers or a small gift will be appreciated in Brazilian environment. For example, orchids are considered a very nice gift, but avoid purple ones because it's not a good sign in Brazil. Avoid giving anything purple or black, as these are mourning colors. Since handkerchiefs are associated with funerals, they don't make good gifts. But gifts in general are opened when they are received. On the other hand, Brazilians, they try to leverage the negotiations, which in case means that giving the gifts mean that they give the power in a negotiation. That's another common terminology in Brazilian environment, like leveraging the negotiations by giving the gifts. So in the next slide, I will briefly introduce you to the language, how it is used in Brazilian environment. For example, the people who are trying to launch the business in Brazil, they don't have to rely on Portuñol. Although it's likely that you will make yourself understood using English and even Spanish, speaking Portuguese goes a long way and it will be very much appreciated by the Brazilian businessmen. On the other hand, it will also allow you to understand Brazilian culture and to relate with individuals from different perspectives. Remember that language will be one of the pillars upon which you will develop trust and long-term relationship. Submitting any written information accompanied by matching translation in Portuguese is equally important. The diminutive is a typical characteristic of Brazilian Portuguese. It expresses familiarity and affection towards a thing or a person. Most words can be used in the diminutive form by adding the syllable inha for females and inho for males. For example, the word casa means little house, whereby casinha is the affectionate way of talking about the little house using the feminine. The diminutive is also used to lighten the verbal statements that might otherwise sound too blunt. For example, instead of saying yes, someone may say só pouquinho, which means only a little bit. The next slide will introduce you to body language and communication that is common in Brazil. Brazilians have a very warm manner of communication and they make extensive use of body language as well. It's common to shake hands for a longer period of time, maintaining eye contact, showing that you feel comfortable with their behavior. And you don't have to act in a reticent manner. Displaying emotions during communication must be seen as a sign of enthusiasm and emphasis, never as losing control. Don't limit yourself to use of emails. It's convenient that you follow up on conversations through phone calls and also video conferences. Brazilians are not very fond of the American style of communication through the exchange of a large number of emails. In Brazil, emphasis is placed on oral communication, a format which is more valuable than the written format. So the use of significant amounts of exaggerated body language plays a significant role in normal communication. Brazilians are very tactile, even across the sexes, and work at very close proximity. They also exhibit strong levels of eye contact when speaking to people. This combination of tactility, proximity, and a steady gaze can be intimidating for some. But it's important that you adapt to these issues as quickly as possible, otherwise your own reserve could be misinterpreted as unfriendliness. You also have to be careful when using humor in very serious situations, as it can be viewed as lacking in gravitas. However, in everyday situations, it's important to be seen as good company and entertaining. Life is to be lived and enjoyed in Brazilian environment. So to continue For example, the person of highest importance in the company or in the department with which you are negotiating will be in the charge of making a final decision. Brazilians mostly prefer the vertical organization, and there are several chains of command and management as well. So the next slide will give you the introduction of the business meals and calendar that is used in Brazilian business environment. So after a business meeting, it's likely that you will be invited to a lunch or a dinner of traditional Brazilian food. Seize this moment. It's an excellent way to strengthen your relationship with your Brazilian partners. We advise to keep conversation within the social scope. If you want to deal with any business matters, it's best to wait until coffee is served. Although it might seem like a minor issue, but you should carefully consider the dates when you're planning to go on your business trips to Brazil. Doing a business trip during the carnivals will be more complicated, not only to schedule your agenda, but also to book flights, hotels, and also the other stuff. In general, it's useful to know any other holidays in Brazil, especially when you're expecting or must make any phone calls or send any kind of report by email. Remember that in any project you are approaching, the important thing is to take solid steps rather than the quick ones. So, in the next slide, I will explain you the business negotiations in the commercial culture in Brazil. Brazilians prefer mostly face-to-face meetings to written communication, as it follows them to know the person with whom they are doing business. The individual they deal with is most important than the company. You have to be courteous and do not openly criticize, particularly in a group situation, as this will cause offense. Communication is often informal and doesn't rely on strict rules of protocol. Anyone in the meeting can comfortably contribute to discussions. It's not frowned upon to interrupt someone when they are speaking as long as it is within context of the discussion and not to overtly disagree or criticize. Brazilians are very much in favor of properly drawn up legal documents. So in the next slide, my colleague Valeria will introduce you the business negotiations in Brazil, mainly what business owners should wear, what title and business cards are used there, what's the type and format of the meetings, and what is the method of negotiating in Brazilian environment. And after that, she will conclude all the statements and thoughts that we introduced throughout our presentation.
Okay, thank you for your words, and I will continue about business negotiations and exactly what to wear. The key to dress code in Brazil is to know the company with whom you are dealing. Some are more conservative than others, but remember, the Brazilians are very proud of their appearance, and being well dressed will earn respect. Conservative companies will expect the man to wear a suit and tie, while women are required to dress elegantly in either suit, jacket, and trousers or a formal business dress. Brazilian women place great emphasis upon appearance and there's a preference for a touch of glamour. Some more modern companies are less formal and smart casual is acceptable, although avoid wearing jeans and t-shirt. Men should wear trousers and shirt with a jacket, and women can wear slacks with a smart top. So in the next slide I would like to discover titles and business cards. The formal way to greet a man is senior and signora for women. Single women and younger women should be greeted as signorita. Business cards are exchanged during introductions with everyone at the meeting. It's advisable, although not required, to have the other side of your business card translated into Portuguese. Present your business card with the Portuguese side facing the recipient. So in the next slide, I will continue with meetings. Business appointments are required and can often be scheduled on short notice. However, it's best to make them 2 to 3 weeks in advance. Confirm the meeting in writing. It's not uncommon for appointments to be cancelled or changed at the last minute. In Sao Paulo and Brasilia, it's important to arrive on time for meetings. In Rio de Janeiro and other cities, it's acceptable to arrive a few minutes late for a meeting. Do not appear absent if you are captivating. Brazilians see time as something outside their control, and the demand of relationship takes precedence over adhering to strict scheduled meetings are general rather informal. Accept to be interrupted while you are speaking or making a presentation. Avoid confrontation. Don't appear frustrated with your Brazilian colleagues. So in the last slide I would go through negotiation. Expect questions about your company since Brazilians are more comfortable doing business with people and companies they know. Wait for your Brazilian colleagues to raise the business subject. Never rush the relationship between time. Brazilians take time when negotiation. Don't rush them or appear impatient. Expect a great deal of time to be spent reviewing details. Often the people you negotiate with will not have decision-making authority. It's advisable to hire a translation if your Portuguese is not fluent. Use the help of local lawyers and accountants for negotiations. So that's all what we would like to discuss in this topic, and thank you so much for your attention.